Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. All right, today's webinar is brought to you by Promises Healthcare. Now, before we begin, may I request for everyone to mute their mics on their computer? This is really very important, or else the audio will be quite messy. All right, yeah, thanks. Thank you for that. However, you are most welcome to leave your videos on if so that our speaker could see everyone, if you don't mind. Other than that, let's get down to the webinar. All right, today we have Joachim Lee, one of our most experienced and most veteran psychotherapists and hypnotherapists. We'll be discussing about the quality of sleep itself, as well as different relaxation techniques used for managing stress levels and for better sleep quality. In the meantime, throughout this whole webinar, please do post your questions in the chat room and Joachim will answer them towards the end of the session. Hang on, but before we start, there's still some background audio, so let me just make sure if everyone's muted. Yeah. Yes. Okay. I believe everyone has muted their microphone, so I'll hand the time now over to you, Joachim. Please do kick off the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joachim. As what Fred mentioned, I've been doing hypnotherapy for many, many years. I may sound old, but I'm not old. Some say I'm only in the 20s. But anyway, one way to remain healthy and active is actually sleep. So today we're going to talk about how does sleep help us to have a better health and actually rejuvenates us. So today's what I'm going to cover for today. Is a lot of information, and I look more forward in terms of the questions we're asking. So I'll cover a lot in terms of how sleep impacts us and how we can actually maximize the sleep that we have, and also to understand how we have a body rhythm that if we can tap to the body rhythm, we can have better sleep and as an outcome, better health. So this is what we're going to cover for today. So one of the most underrated health habit is sleep. Sleep, which I'm going to share as I go on, is the most important aspect of our lives. We spend 1/3 of our whole life sleeping. And we don't sleep properly, we know, right? We become moody, grouchy. And we know from children, when those who are parents, you know that when a child does not sleep, a child will become grouchy, moody, agitated. And even as adults, we forget that when we don't get sufficient sleep, our mental health or physical health is affected also. So what happens in our brains and bodies while we are sleeping? And we do know when we are sleeping, it helps to maintain a healthy immune system. This is so important. I think we do know, right? When we don't have enough sleep, our immunity drops and then catching a cold and God forbid the COVID-19. So having proper sleep does boost our immune system. And the other thing about sleep is that it creates and consolidates memories. So this is one aspect I want to stress more as I go on later, that it is in REM sleep that our brain begins to consolidate the memories, emotions, and start what we call a cleanup of all the emotions that are built up from the day so that we won't be affected by the emotions and memories. And more importantly, when we have proper sleep, we are energetic when we are awake. So just for some fun facts, in terms of survival, how many days do you think we can survive without water? I know no one can say, can articulate, so let me just give you the answer. So it's actually 4 days. So if we don't drink water for 4 days, you know what will happen. And what about food? How many days can we survive without food? 4 days, 5 days, 6 days. And in average, research has shown we can survive for 25 days without eating. And so, how many days can we survive without sleeping? So we have watched television, we have seen how one of the torture processes that people do is they'll don't allow people to sleep or allow them to sleep for a few minutes and they wake them up. And that actually affects the whole physical well-being. But if we do not sleep for more than 6 days, we will die. Our body literally shuts down. So these are important facts to know. So I want to ask you this question, like how many hours of sleep do we need? I heard this from my ex-colleagues, even my colleagues and my friends, and some say, oh, I need at least 9 hours of sleep, or I need at least 8 hours of sleep. If I don't get 8 hours or more, my body will be affected. I can't function. Coming to that, but just ask yourself, how many hours of sleep do you think you need? So interestingly, in 2017, the Nobel Prize was awarded for research on the circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm is basically your biological clock. And you can look at the picture like given there. Our body has an inbuilt system where it functions based on our biological clock. And you look at, let's say, for in terms of almost 10, 11 o'clock, where the melatonin secretion at the bottom right of your screen, you see the melatonin secretion. So melatonin is the hormone that regulates sleep. And that's a time when the body secretes melatonin, and that's when we feel sleepy and the time to go to sleep. And we look at the left, it's around 3 o'clock when we're in a deeper sleep, and our body drops the temperature. And so this is a rhythm that our body goes through. All of us is in our DNA. And the 2017 Nobel Prize was circadian rhythm. So why is this so important? Because this regulates, and this will help us to understand why sleep is so important and what happens when we don't get enough sleep or when we do not sleep at the right time. So in circadian rhythm, there are many forms of circadian rhythm in our bodies. And these are just some of the examples indicated the cortisol, adrenaline, melatonin. And interestingly, in the morning when we are awake, our cortisol level and our adrenaline level actually goes up. And these are the pick-me-up hormones that keeps us active. And the melatonin, you see, is the other way around. And interestingly, if you look at the melatonin and adrenaline, it's the opposite. So which means in our body, there is an internal clock that tells us it's time to wake up, time to be active, and a time to fall asleep. And our core temperature at the bottom, middle bottom, you see our temperature drops in the early morning. That's why we are sleeping in the morning. We feel cold at 3 or 4 o'clock because our temperature drops, and also heart rate. So all hormone lives a circadian life. In other words, we as human beings, even in animals, in plants, there is a circadian life that we go through. So this is just information. So what is circadian rhythm and how does it help us to understand sleep? So again, as mentioned, it is our body's internal clock, and it operates roughly on a 24-hour cycle. It governs the way we sleep and wake up, and it plays a large part in everything that we do, from hormone release to body temperature, which means literally we are actually have a clock internally, and we cannot control it, but it's a way that it runs our life. So circadian rhythm, as mentioned earlier, are not exclusive to humans and are found in nearly every living creature, from animal to plant to various microorganisms. So this is interesting to know that. So when our circadian rhythm is disrupted, straight away our sleeping, our waking, our digestive system are immediately affected. And one thing we know is we don't sleep enough, we will wake up, we feel grouchy, we feel awful, right? And also when it's affected, the longer term effects includes cardiovascular problems, obesity. So this is interesting. If we don't get enough sleep, guess what happens? We gain weight. Surprise, surprise. And also possibly some neurological problems like depression and bipolar disorder. So these are research that's been done in terms of how important is sleep and what happens when we don't get sufficient sleep. You get mental illness, weight gain, even heart problems. So everyone has a distinct circadian pattern known as a chronotype, and I'll come to that afterwards, because the chronotype would help you to understand what is your typical biological degenetic sleep pattern. So we've heard the term, right? Early bird, night owl. Some say, oh, I'm an early bird, or some a night owl, I function better at night. Some say, no, I function better in the morning. And interestingly, it's not because they say, oh, you're lazy, you rather sleep in the morning, or oh, you just want to avoid the crowds and say you do it in the nighttime. But we found in research that these are all biologically connected. Some are night owls, some are night bird, early bird, night owl. But these are just two terms. I'm going to say more in terms of the four chronotypes that determine our sleep pattern. So just before that, so the early bird and night owl, so the early birds are larks, and the owls, you can see that in this graph, the red is the early bird, the blue is the night owl. Even though I mentioned the circadian rhythm and how it regulates the melatonin and hormones, look at for the early bird and the night owl, the melatonin is secreted at a different timing. From early bird, it becomes a peaks around almost midnight. For a night owl, you look at the melatonin is almost a peak around 6, 7 o'clock. So which means some of us function better at night and some function better in the morning. And that's why some of us, we find it so hard to sleep at night. Some find it so easy to sleep at night. And it's because of the melatonin. The melatonin regulates our sleep. So in the research, we found that there are 4 chronotypes and it's coded in your DNA. It's called period 3 or pearl 3. So rather than talking about early bird and night owl, new research has sort of realized, okay, let's talk about, first find an animal that are mammals that can closely represent us human beings. And so there are these 4 chronotypes that came about, known as the lion, the bear, the wolves, the dolphins. And lion makes up about 15% of the population. The bear actually the best. The bear is about 55% of the population. Wolves, 15%, dolphins, 10%. I'll come back to this because this is actually one of the critical things to understand our sleep. So it's good to know your sleep type, and I'll come to that. But let's talk a bit first about in terms of our sleep. And to understand sleep, there are 2 distinct sleep systems in our brain. We have the sleep drive and the sleep rhythm. So the sleep drive is activated due to the increase of the hormone adenosine that increases with wakefulness, causing sleepiness. So which means, because constant sleep drive like your need, I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat, then you get full, right? So that's a drive. And the sleep rhythm is actually your circadian rhythm, which governs how your body sleep at what time and when the melatonin is secreted. So the key is actually to allow how we can get both your sleep drive and your sleep rhythm to work together. So for example, our sleep drive, have you experienced a day where you're so tired, you're just pulling yourself up, I can work, so I'm so exhausted, I need to sleep. So you sleep at 8 p.m. for example, but then because you're so exhausted, you find yourself tossing and turning while your body is so tired, you can't sleep. You have experienced this, I'm quite certain you have. So why this happens? Because even though your sleep drive is high, your sleep rhythm is low. So when that happens, it's not in sync, that's why we can't sleep. Or have you experienced a time where you had such a good meal, such a heavy meal, I feel so sleepy, you doze off. Then you wake up an hour later. Then when you try to sleep at night, you can't sleep. So that's because when you doze off for sleep, your body burns off the excess adenosine. And when it burns off, your sleep drive drops. And even though your sleep rhythm goes up, it's again out of sync. So when that happens, we find it so difficult to sleep. So getting both our sleep drive and our sleep rhythm or circadian rhythm to work together is critical for sleep, and it's also important to have a good health. So this is just a graph again to show, in terms of scientifically, what happens. And you look at the peaks here, the greatest urge to sleep equals the greatest distance between the two peaks. And you look at this graph, straight away, the best timing to sleep is about 11, 12 o'clock. That's when distance widest, and that's when both the sleep drive and the circadian rhythm is in sync. Of course, we know it does not happen for all of us. Some of us sleep so easily, some toss and turn so difficult, and just so difficult to sleep. Like my wife can only sleep after 3 in the morning. Before that, no matter how tired she's trying to sleep, she can't sleep. For me, it's the moment I sleep around 12 o'clock, within 5-10 minutes, I'm in la la land. So we all have a different sleep pattern. So let's talk about now sleep stages and sleep cycle. So sleep is an active state as complex as wakefulness. And our brain does not shut down during sleep. So this is an interesting thing that we found when we did the brain studies, that even in deep sleep, even in REM sleep, our brain is very active. It does not shut down. But we found that sleep goes through different stages. We call it the non-REM sleep and the REM sleep. What does this mean? So briefly, basically the 4 levels of a non-REM sleep. If you look at the graph, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, 4, 5 is a REM sleep. So what does this mean basically? So stage 1 is a transition from wakefulness to light sleep. So if someone wakes you up when you are in stage 1, you might not even think that you are really asleep. What is it? Oh, yeah. So, but there is sleep happening. But it's only about 5% of sleep time. Stage 2 is slightly deeper, and it is about 40 to 50% of your sleep time. Okay. Stage 3 and stage 4 is also known as deep sleep or delta sleep, and makes up about 20% of total sleep. And it's at these stages that growth hormones increases. The body heals itself. Remember, I talked about you building up your immunity. And so this is a stage where your body heals itself and you experience metabolic and tissue regeneration. So this is where you begin to actually burn fat. So this is when the physical restoration stage of sleep. So when you have enough delta deep sleep, you wake up fresh. If you wake up, you feel great. So after stage 1, 2, 3, 4, we go into what's called REM sleep. And REM sleep, it makes up 25% of sleep. If you look at the graph above, if you look at compare the wakefulness graph as when we are awake during the daytime, and the REM sleep at the bottom, interesting, it looks almost the same. It's because during REM sleep is when the brain is very active, very busy, but we are in deep, deep sleep, and our body does not move. And this is when we start to dream a lot. And as we go into our REM sleep, the dreams become more and more vivid. And so at REM sleep, this is the most important, we call this a mental restoration stage of sleep. Whereas stage 3 and 4 is a physical restoration, REM is a mental restoration, where your emotions are parked aside, you sort of consolidate information. And with enough REM sleep, you can think quickly and creatively and able to organize your thoughts better. So in this graph, so this is what happens. You look at the orange is the wakefulness, then the light gray, the gray is light sleep, dark blue is the deep sleep, then the light blue is the REM sleep. Our body goes from wakefulness to stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, 4, then it goes to a light sleep before it goes to a REM. Interesting. It's how the body sleeps. And once we REM, our body will awaken for a while, and then we go back to sleep again. So I think we experience this after sleep 90 minutes, you wake up for a while, oh, what time is it? And before long, you go back to sleep. So it's how the body cycles. And each sleep cycle lasts about 90 minutes. And after 90 minutes, we will wake up for a while, and then we go back to sleep. And in average, everyone has about 4 to 5 sleep cycles per night. Important information, because this is going to explain in terms of how much sleep we need per night. So how much sleep do we need? 7 or 9 hours. Some will say 8, some say 9. But interestingly, it averages between 7 to 9, but research has shown Anything more than 7.5 hours is actually not good for the body because we become lethargic. I think you've experienced this, right? I sleep so much, I feel so tired. So just think in terms of your sleep as your reserves. When you sleep, your body builds up immunity. So this sleep bank account. And during the day, we withdraw the whatever else we put in. And when we sleep, we replenish the account. So what happens when we don't sleep enough? Let's say we have about 3-4 hours of sleep, 5 hours, and then wake up, we are full steam ahead. And prolonged lack of sleep creates a mental meltdown, a physical meltdown. So I talked about the chronotypes. So let's go back now to chronotypes. So chronotypes are what we know as the lions. The lions, the first type, when they are known as the early risers. So a lion, you know, the first kill is actually wee morning, right? Where the lion, they wake up early and they're the one getting hunted. So early risers are normally lions. Like my mother-in-law, she's up by 5 o'clock. And she's really so active, energetic, and she's really full steam. So those are lions. Basically, they require medium sleep drive, which means they don't have a need to sleep during the day. But what happens is because they're up so early, by 10, 11 o'clock, they're so exhausted they fall asleep. So those are lions. Bears. So bears makes up 55% of the population. And if you look at today's world, our schedule work from 9 to 5 or 8 to 6, whatever, it actually suits a bear chronotype. Because a bear are solar sleepers, which means they rise with the sun, they sleep when the sun sets. 55%, and they are healthy sleep drive, which means they sleep easily. I am a bear, so my wife is so jealous with me that I can just go to bed and within 5 minutes, I'm asleep. So I am a bear. So again, so that's my chronotype. So there are also wolves. Wolves are what we know in the past as the night owls. So wolves, literally, they function better at night because in the morning, the body is still high in melatonin. Remember the graph I showed earlier? So, but it goes down, the balance drops, and they peak during the afternoon, and they're most creative in the nighttime. The late starters, but when they come evening time, they're really efficient. So those are wolves, 15% of population. And then research has said that found that there's actually one more chronotype. And again, all this can be identified in the DNA of the person. Dolphins. And dolphins often have erratic sleep schedule, which means that times that the timing when they sleep changes, and they're very short sleep drive, but they crave for longer bouts of sleep because they've not been getting sufficient sleep, so the body needs it, but they can't sleep. And most of the time, they're diagnosed as insomniacs, and they tend to worry and think a lot, and they're very, very light sleepers. And dolphins basically, they are poor travelers. If you put them in a plane and when they fly, they find it hard to sleep, or when they sleep, they're so sensitive to any sound, they can be affected by it. So there are lions, bears, wolves, dolphins. So just giving this short description, where do you think you are? Are you a lion, bear, wolf, or dolphin? So one way then to find out what's your optimal sleep time and sleep need. So this is again scientifically, you can use this to help to calculate. So we know that average sleep cycle is 90 minutes, and we have about 4 to 5 cycles of sleep. Let's put this way easier. So we times 90 minutes times 5 cycles is 450 minutes, or basically 7.5 hours of sleep. So and let's say you take about 20 minutes to fall asleep, you add that inside. So which means there's a time that you need to sleep. So one of the formulas that we ask is, let's say you are a parent and you need to wake up at 6 to get your kids to school. So which means your socially determined wake up time is 6 o'clock. Then you work backwards. What time should you be going to bed to cover those hours? Make sense so far? So scientists then have sort of experts have sort of come up with this table for us. For lions and bears, they found that it's 5 cycles, And dolphins and wolves, they found that basically because the sleep drive is lesser, they only have about 4 cycles. And they give suggestion in terms of your wake up time for a lion, a bear, dolphin, and wolf, and time to go to bed. If you look at lions, they need to sleep earlier because they're up earlier, so the body needs sufficient time to recuperate during the night. Of course, when asked me then, but I can't sleep. I need, like my wife, she can only sleep at 3 in the morning. That's when, in terms of understanding your sleep pattern, we can condition the body and the brain to adjust, because based on your circadian rhythm, we do know that at a certain time the body releases, so we can adjust to it with time, with training. So basically it takes about 5 to 7 days for the body to adjust itself to proper sleep time. So what's the effect of sleep deprivation? So we talk about sleep debt. When we withdraw more than what we put in, the amount of sleep you need will increase if you're deprived of sleep over previous days. So we know that the more the lesser sleep we get during the day and days, become sleep deprived. And guess what? We long to have more sleep, especially REM sleep. And chronic sleep debt will increase the risk of obesity, heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. And interestingly, researchers also have found that under certain conditions, it can accelerate your cancer cells. Scary when you hear that. So when we have sleep deprivation, it affects your brain because it increases your stress levels, it increases the risk for depression. And this is interesting. We found in research that if we have this predisposition for depression and we deprive ourselves of sleep for more than 3-4 weeks in a row, the depression just come to the forefront. So that's how important sleep is. Weight gain, stroke, diabetes, as I mentioned. So let's give a bit of comparison then in terms of a healthy, well-rested brain versus a sleep-deprived brain. And we talk in terms of the amygdala. Amygdala is the emotion center where the brain, where it fires a fight and flight response, emotions and fears. So this is what we found. A well-rested brain, the prefrontal cortex keeps the amygdala in check, which means we better process feelings, we will better control emotions. And those with a sleepy brain, we tend to be reactive. And interesting research has found that even when we give a well-rested brain and someone who's not enough sleep, a neutral event, the rested brain says, oh yeah, that's okay. A sleepy brain will look at neutral and have a negative response to it. That's why you notice sometimes when we see our colleagues or friends, hey, this is nothing wrong. Why are you so agitated about it? Why are you so reactive? And that's because when we don't have enough sleep, we tend to see things negatively. And 65% of those who have good quality sleep report excellent health. Whereas the sleepy brain, we don't report that. We report having insomnia. We report having 20 times more likely to develop anxiety. And interestingly, as much as 30 minutes less sleep can cause this consistently. So in terms of this chemical called adenosine. So adenosine is actually, what we found was that it's a byproduct of cells breaking down the glucose, and adenosine builds up. And when it comes to evening time, adenosine would then be attracted to a receptor, and that makes us sleepy. However, for a sleepy brain, the adenosine builds up even quicker. So which means we are constantly sleepy, we can't process, we can't focus. That's why you notice that someone who's sleepy, we make mistakes, we can't focus, we can't concentrate. So for work, only 27% of people report feeling overwhelmed. Well, whereas a sleepy brain, 40% report feeling overwhelmed. And well-rested brain able to handle workload, whereas a sleepy brain, it takes it longer to get work done. When I was heading our center in the past, I have this colleague of mine, 9 to 5, he'll be at the computer staring. He looks so busy, keep typing away. So when I asked him, okay, can I have your report now? I'm still doing. So I just asked him, okay, can you show me how much have you done? Because I want to see how I can help you. And he says, sorry, boss, only done 2 lines. I said, you have been looking at the computer typing from 6, 9 to 5. And literally what happens when we have a sleepy brain, you're typing, we don't have typing, so you're constantly deleting, adding on, deleting, and it's not moving. That's because a sleepy brain, it can't process information. And in terms of driving, for example, we found that if you have a sleepy brain or insufficient sleep, our reactive time is 30% lesser than a well-rested brain. And that's scary. That shows that the chance of you making a mistake, of missing a turn or whatever, is higher. And even in relationship, a well-rested brain, we are calmer, we will communicate, and we are happier. Whereas a sleepy brain, as you can see in the slide, we lose patience, we get agitated, we start yelling, screaming, and we react very quickly, and our sex drive drops. And with children, we know this, right? Those are parents, you know that when a child is well rested, the child will wake up feeling happy, chirpy, and they grow normally with lesser immune problems. Whereas a child that does not get sufficient sleep, we notice that are agitated, grouchy, and sometimes I don't want to go to sleep. I don't go to school. I don't go to school. You see a lot of behavioral problem in a child. That's because a sleepy brain is unable to process information and affects their health. So some common sleep disorders. So we do know that if this happens consistently, trouble falling asleep at night, waking throughout the night, chronic snoring. Men do snore, but chronic is like, it's really horrible. Morning headaches. Have you experienced where you wake up, I don't know, the headaches? 1, 2 times okay, but constantly, then there's probably a sleep issue. Poor memory, daytime sleepiness, or falling asleep during the day, low energy, bad moods, irritable, increased depression. Maybe I talk about if you're predisposed to depression and you don't get sufficient sleep every night, the depression will just in the forefront. Trouble concentrating on making decisions. So hope this is clear. Do ask me questions if I'm clear afterwards, because this is one of the key slides to understand how sleep impacts us physically and emotionally. So in terms of the link between our lifestyle and sleep problems, so ask yourself this question: why is it watching television or computer late at night and too close to bedtime affects your sleep? Or some will say, oh, because of the stimulation that I watch. I say, no, it's just TV is relaxing. Computer, I'm just watching some YouTube is relaxing. Yeah, it is relaxing, but don't forget, it's not the TV or the computer game or the YouTube channel that you watch that hinders your sleep. It is the blue light that's emitted from the computer, from the television. And research has found that it's the blue light that switches off the melatonin tap in our brain. Remember I mentioned melatonin is a sleep regulator and it's part of our circadian rhythm, where at a certain time, the melatonin will be tapped on, and that's when you regulate our sleep and we feel sleepy. So when we watch excessive television at night, computer, YouTube, gaming, the blue light emitted will tell the brain, oh, it's daytime. Okay, then it's time to switch off the melatonin. So that disrupts your circadian rhythm, and when it becomes disrupted, your sleep drive and your sleep rhythm will be out of sync. So if that is a constant issue, it's advisable to cut down television, computer, even YouTube or any gaming 1 to 2 hours before you sleep. And that would get your brain to regulate back. My wife, what she has done is, she has now, because I told her about all these things, she has now stopped watching all YouTube or even reading or doing her work on computer late at night. And she'll start to do some reading the book with a soft light. And she reported that she's able to sleep better now. So take note of that. And are you consuming too much caffeine during the day? Earlier, I talked about this chemical called adenosine, correct? Where adenosine is a byproduct when we burn out glucose, and then throughout the day it builds up, and at night, the more it builds up, it becomes sleepier and sleepier. And interestingly, we found that the molecular structure of adenosine and the molecular structure of caffeine is almost identical except for one molecule. So which means if you consume too much caffeine, the caffeine will lock itself to the receptor in the brain and block the adenosine from making you feel sleepy at night. And when that happens, that's why those of us with more sensitivity, we can't sleep at night. So it could be caffeine, it could be drinks, beverages that has caffeine like Coke, tea, green tea. So ideally, research has shown to cut off all caffeine after 2 p.m. because the shelf life of a caffeine in the system can last from 6 to 8 hours after your last drink. And even for those who say, no, but joking, I don't believe this because I can drink coffee now, I can fall asleep the next minute. I'm one of those person. I can drink the strongest cappuccino or espresso and still fall asleep. Well, if I plug EEG on your head and we do a scan, the quality of sleep is affected. You may sleep, may go to stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, but it will not go into the deep sleep that we need for the restoration. It could be sometimes a medication that could be affecting your sleep. So it's good to check if you have any medication, check with your doctor. And sometimes there's a particular stressful situation going in your life that may cause you to worry and become anxious. And because of that, we are so preoccupied with that thought that we can't sleep. And again, exercise. Exercise is good. Exercise releases tension and stress. But research again has found that do not exercise 4 hours before you go to sleep. If you are going to exercise at a time where you have your body's able to release the melatonin. Because when we exercise, guess what? We become more fresh, more alert. So it's good for stress, tension relief. It's also important in terms of timing of your sleep or your exercise. So some things to take note of in terms of a key thing we found in terms of sleep is that have a consistent sleep time and a wake up time. Sadly, even on weekends. So which means if your waking up time is 6, 7 a.m. every day, even on weekends, so sorry, if you sleep in, it's going to affect you. Why? Because if that's your consistent sleep time, your circadian rhythm is literally bad. So if you sleep in more during weekend, let's say you catch up a lost sleep, right? What happens is your circadian rhythm is upset, is pushed back. Then Sunday you will do that. Guess what? After 2 days of doing that, your body craves for more sleeping. And that's why we have what's known as Monday blues. Because the brain is just, I want to catch up. But if we have consistent bedtimes and wake up times, our sleep drive and our circadian rhythm is in sync. So which means we're getting enough sleep to a point that there won't be any sleep deficit. We sleep enough, we feel fresh, able to start the day. So that's important to understand. Having a consistent sleep, bedtime, and a wake up time, even on weekends. The other thing is in your room, create a dark, cool, and comfortable bed. This is true especially for those who are like sleepers, like the wolves and dolphins, where if it's uncomfortable, they'll be awake. So having a dark, cool, comfortable bed does help in terms of your sleep hygiene. And quiet time away from the bright light, the blue light I was mentioning about. And especially nowadays, your WhatsApp, your phone emits a lot of blue rays. So I recommend that if you need to check your text messages at night, put it on the In your phone, there's this setting that you change from daytime to nighttime setting where the light actually softens and it doesn't emit the blue ray. So again, these are ways we can have practice better sleep hygiene so that our brain is used to the circadian rhythm and we don't upset it. And if you need to nap, and interestingly about naps, why nap is so important, there's research done in terms of how can we have optimal nap times to function. And literally research was carried out because of astronauts. When astronauts are up in the moon, right? What happens is that every 90 minutes when they're up in the moon, it's a brand new day for the astronaut, which means the whole circadian rhythm for them is really out of sync. So it's why whole research was done in terms of what's the best way to nap. So again, a few things is do not nap before bedtime. So which means after 6 o'clock, 6 p.m., don't nap. Because when you nap, you're burning off the buildup of the adenosine in your brain. And when you burn it off, guess what? Your sleep drive and your circadian rhythm is out of sync. And when you nap, make sure it's less than 30 minutes. I know some of us have napped and wake up, oh, I have a heavy head, I feel drowsy. That's because you have napped too long. So the key is having shorter naps at certain times. And give yourself ample time for sleep. So in other words is, don't expect when you lie in bed, I need to fall asleep. Some of us takes 5 minutes, some of us take 20 minutes to really wind down. And if you are a wolf or a dolphin, it may take 40 minutes. So knowing the way your body winds down is not an on-off switch to help you to understand the way you fall asleep. And again, avoid coffee, caffeine, a heavy meal, because a heavy meal will disrupt the adenosine buildup and your circadian rhythm. And you don't want it so heavy that you fall asleep way before the actual time to sleep. So steps to help sleep. So again, I did mention that if you know in terms of your sleep pattern, it takes you about 20 minutes to fall asleep or 40 minutes. And if you, on average, in research, we found about 20 or 30 minutes seems to be the average. But if after a certain time you can't sleep, my suggestion is get out of bed. Don't just toss and turn and get frustrated in a way, because what happens is if you do that, you're conditioning the body and brain to tell you that bed can also not be a place to sleep, can be a place to just toss and turn and not sleep. So you're going to condition your brain and the body that bed is only for sleep and sex, nothing more. So in other words, avoid snacking in your bed, even avoid working in bed, because once you start working in bed, your mind and your brain will start associating bed with just work and not sleep. I would know this because I'm also a trained hypnotist and I work with the brain in terms of brain therapy, and the brain associates very quickly. The brain's ability, the brain's main function is to learn something quick and to automate it. So if you're constantly doing your work on bed, your computer, especially now with our work from home that we will be doing, if you work on your bed, your brain will say, okay, bed, time to work. So avoid that. Bed should only be for sleeping and sex. And anything more than that, do not associate bed with that. So if you can't sleep for more than 20, 30 minutes, get out, do a bit of stretching, breathe a bit, and then what happens is to allow the melatonin to kick in and declutter your sleep space. So all of us have a way of sleeping, a space. So if I made home visits as part of my therapy, and I've been to people's homes. When I look at the bed, I was shocked. I'll see the sleep space is just one corner, and the most of the bed is occupied with all the books, whatever else I put there. And I said, no, bed should have a sleeping, and you declutter it. There's this sense of freedom that you have in the body and brain. So what are some steps that help you to sleep? I mentioned 3 things here, and I'm quite certain the next webinar, when my colleague speaks about mindfulness, this will be mentioned more. But 3 things I can share with you here that can quickly help you to sleep better. One is actually the breathing. So when you're lying in bed, do remember what I call the 7-11 breathing, or literally your exhalation should be 3 counts more than your inhalation. So which means is when you lie in bed, slow down your breathing, deep breathing. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 breathing, then exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what happens when you do a deep, slow breathing that way? When you breathe, it activates your sympathetic nervous system. So which when you breathe in, you're oxygenating your whole body. And when you exhale out, that's why the exhalation is always 3 counts more. Your body, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, and that's the part of your body that actually makes you feel relaxed, calm, sleepy, comfortable. So by doing that, just focusing on your breathing, and you do this daily, and if you're not used to it, take about 5 to 6 days, you'll notice that you actually fall asleep better and better, easier and easier, because you are working together with your circadian rhythm to release the melatonin. So that's one way you can do even today if you find it hard to sleep. The second one is what we call the progressive muscle relaxation. So these are for people who are very tense and are very wound up at night, and it takes a longer time to relax. Besides the breathing, what you can do when you lie in bed, just focus on every body part. Start with the toe, and what you do is literally tense each body part, hold on for a few seconds, relax it. Then tense the next body part. So you're building up from your toes to your calves, to your thighs, to your torsos. And by doing that and relaxing it after that, the brain gets the message, oh, it's time to just relax. Again, consistency, practice. Or the third one, which I use a lot with all my clients, and all swear that it works so well, is literally for those that have a monkey mind, who are really so active, worries a lot, have a lot of things running in your mind. What you can do is literally when you lie in bed, after doing a deep breathing, and you find you're still very active, keep your eyes closed. Imagine that you see yourself, so which means you see yourself, you hear yourself, and you feel yourself in deep sleep. So literally you're watching a movie of you in deep sleep, how you're nicely cuddled up in your bed, a blanket or whatever, how you sleep. So you're seeing that as if you're in a picture, you're seeing a movie. And once you see that and you see it so clearly, float into the scene. So from seeing it, you float inside and you feel yourself in deep sleep. You hear, you feel. And what happens is you practice, again, you're retraining the brain and the circadian rhythm. This is time to sleep. So these are 3 simple exercises that you can do starting today if you find it harder to fall asleep. And again, for those who have this habit of sleeping at 2, 3 in the morning, it takes a bit longer because you need to reset your sleep habit so that you can be in sync with your circadian rhythm. And again, for those who have excessive anxiety, worry, or I've got stress from today, like what will happen tomorrow, where your brain is constantly running because you're concerned about work, my child, my husband, my wife. What you can do is literally listen down, draw a line, and just write your concerns that you have for the day. And on the right column, just what are things you can do now. So by just penning it down, guess what happens is you're telling the brain, I'm parking it outside for a while so that I can rest my brain, I can rest my body. And this is a technique that we use in what we call cognitive behavioral therapy, and it works very, very well. Again, practice. So good sleep equals an increased immune function. Can you believe it that the last MC that I took was more than 30 years ago? In the past 30 years, I've not taken a single MC because I sleep well. So but basically, we know from research that good sleep increases your immune function and it decreases your blood pressure. So 2 weeks back, I went to see the doctor just for my full physical checkup. And the doctor was surprised that my whole body was in perfect condition. Even people say that, looking at me indoor, I'm in my 50s now. My 50s, all my cholesterol, my pressure, my physical, was someone in the early 30s. And again, that's what happened with a good sleep. Your pressure drops, decreased pain, reduced stress, better cognitive functioning, increased creativity, you're more positive. Your reaction time is better and you lose weight. Can you believe it? Ever since I changed my sleeping pattern where I slept earlier, I've lost, in the past 1 year itself, okay, I've lost 15 kilograms without exercise, just by changing my sleep pattern. So just to recap, action plan for better sleep, first of all, stick to a consistent sleep schedule, which means sleep time, wake up time. Stop your caffeine by 2 p.m. And if you drink alcohol, 3 hours before sleep. Because for each alcohol you drink, takes about 1 hour to break it down. And even though you fall asleep with alcohol, your quality of sleep doesn't go beyond stage 3 or 4. It stays at good stage 2. So which means you're not getting the right sleep that you need. Stop exercising 4 hours before sleep. And interestingly, to help you to reset your circadian rhythm is to get 15 minutes of sunlight in the morning. Just standing near the window where there's sunlight, or just walking where the sun rays shuts some melatonin production in the morning. So which means when it shuts melatonin, your cortisol, your adrenaline kicks in, and you're begin to start the day. And actually that's when we reset, we work with our circadian rhythm. So just again recap, sleep is a process, it's not an on-off switch. So don't expect when you lie in bed, you will switch off immediately. It's again knowing how you sleep. A lion sleep pattern, a bear, a wolf, a dolphin sleep pattern is different. So knowing that helps a lot. Okay, that's all I have to share. And any questions for me? I know I've gone through a lot. Basically, sleep is so important for your health, both physically, mentally, and knowing your chronotype and how you can have better sleep cuts off a lot of the complications that we have today or in the future when we grow older, where our immune system may go down, and this is how we build up our sleep bank account. Okay, over to anyone with questions. You can type it in, and then my colleague Fred will sort of read it out for me.
All right, there's a question from Chulim. Chulim asks, is it true that older folks sleep lesser? Do older folks sleep less?
Older folks sleep less. Okay, so to answer that, answer is actually yes and no. It all depends on the chronotype. So but interestingly, we notice for older folks, they tend to, I'm not too sure about so we look at the behavior. So when I look at my mother-in-law, she complains she needs less sleep. But because I notice that she naps a lot during the day, constantly catching naps, and because of that, we burn out the adenosine. So again, it's based on your chronotype. But basically, as you grow older, the sleep would literally be the same. Not that we need more, we need less. It's just that what is a sufficient sleep time that we need for physical and mental regeneration. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks for your question. Amos would like to ask, for the most refreshing, sorry. Oh, okay. Yes, the recording will be made available to you guys. It is recorded as of now. Chulim would like to ask another question. What causes people to wake up intermittently? For example, like waking up every once in 2 hours? Is that something that disrupts the sleep?
Yeah. So as I mentioned we go through a sleep of 4 to 5 sleep cycle. So and each sleep cycle lasts about 90 minutes. So after 90 minutes, what happens is our body will then go to stage 1 where we awaken for a while and then we fall back to sleep. For some of us, we awaken and we're alert and then we fall back to sleep. So it's actually normal body rhythm. That's one answer. A second answer is, don't forget, because we have a circadian rhythm, so sometimes when we awaken at night, it could be because of bladder, also because we didn't eat healthily or sufficiently during the day. So when that happens, the body says, I'm hungry. And so the body will wake us up from sleep. And that's could be, again, another reason why we wake up intermittently. But in terms of the sleep cycle, every 90 minutes we awaken. For me, after 90 minutes of sleep, I'll be awakened for 2 to 3 minutes and I'll be active. I'll be looking around, see what's happening, then I'll fall back to sleep. That's normal. So we don't just sleep and we just sleep throughout. There'll be a waking moment. But notice that if you waken up, then you woken from sleep and you can't sleep, ask yourself, how's your diet? Was it healthy, sufficient for the physical function? Or is your body telling you that you're hungry? So that's how we do some experiments, and when we come to see a professional, we can help you to understand your sleep pattern and see what are ways to adjust so that you can have better sleep. And can I just go quickly? For this, especially for many of us who, in this day and age, where we don't get sufficient sleep for many days because of work, whatever, right? And so we are physically exhausted. And let's say the day you need to function to do something, presentation, and you need a boost of energy. There is actually a trick, and this is scientifically proven, a trick where you can do a special nap to get an extra 4 hours boost of energy. But again, this cannot be done all the time. Maximum is 2 to 3 times per week. And then the napping strategy is this. Again, this napping strategy we found astronauts is literally have drip coffee. So drip coffee is basically has the highest caffeine content, not instant coffee. Can be percolated where there's a filter and you drip the coffee. Drip the normal glass, put 3 ice cubes, and guzzle down quickly. No sugar, no milk, black coffee because you want the caffeine. You drink it quickly, and after that, close your eyes for 20 to 25 minutes. So what happens with that is that when you close your eyes, your brain will automatically go to stage 1 and stage 2 of sleep, and it burns off the adenosine that's building up in your brain. And after burning off, you get a boost of energy. And interestingly, all the Fortune 500 CEOs are doing this as to get an extra boost of energy. So if you need that because you need to function for that day, because after days of not enough sleep, this is one way of using a nap for efficiency. But again, not more than 2 to 3 times a week because you still need your proper sleep and not to hack your sleep all the time.
Great, thanks for that. What's your opinion on smartwatches, sleep tracking devices? Tuan would like to ask if those provide a good indication of sleeping hours.
Yes, that's one way to track in terms of your sleep pattern. And hopefully it has an app also to track in terms of your biorhythm. You won't hear those occasionally, but talk biorhythm in terms of what's your optimal sleep time. And so it's good. I'll recommend that because that's one way to track your sleep. Some apps can just track what time to wake up, what time to sleep. That would not help much. If we can have the analysis of your body temperature and what's your ideal sleep time, that would be added advantage. So if you have that app with this function, go ahead. It will be very helpful to help you understand your chronotype and how your circadian rhythm related to sleep works.
All right. Witan would like to ask, is there a particular sleeping position that you recommend to give a more restful sleep without having any bad dreams, I assume?
Well, sleep is really a unique thing to everyone. Some sleep on the back, some sleep on the side, some sleep on the stomach. Interesting research has found that majority of people sleep on the stomach. And research has found people sleep on the stomach have the best quality of sleep, but tend to have numb hands after because you're constantly resting on it. So rather having a sleep position,
Right.
help to understand in terms of which position helps you to sleep better. And also again, they found even though sleeping on the stomach is the best sleep, but they found that when they study in the sleep lab that people sleep stomach tend to move more because they feel numb, they will adjust, and that may, for those who are sensitive, tends to wake them from stage 3 to stage 2, and then take longer time to go back to stage 3. But again, it's not just a sleep position, it's also your bed. A bed has to be comfortable. And one of the things we do not know, but pillow. A pillow has a shelf life of about, the structure of pillow will not last more than 15 to 18 months. So the recommendation from the sleep experts that if a pillow is more than 18 months, get a new pillow because you need the structure of pillow that support your neck, and so that will help with the comfort when you sleep. As long as your bed cool, warm, and dark. So all this comes into play in having optimal sleep.
I find that sleeping on my right side reduces my snoring through a sleep tracking device. Yeah, only my right side.
Those who snore, you sleep on your right or your stomach, cuts down the snoring, yes.
Yeah. I would like, Chulin has a question. Why do some people talk in their sleep? Is it psychological?
Okay, so the talking is when, interestingly, when you sleep, talking your sleep is when you're REM sleep, you're in a REM sleep. So when you're REM sleep is when you're in a deeper sleep, right? And the sleep is most vivid. And most vivid is when you're seeing as if you are there. So when REM sleep, your body becomes paralyzed and it literally does not move. It literally still, eyes are blinking around, but your body does not move. What happens is when we talk in sleep, there's some part of the brain sometimes it does not shut down. That's when we start to talk in our sleep. So we all talk in our sleep once in a while, but it happens all the time. My suggestion is talk to an expert because it could be something neurological or something psychological where it needs to be addressed. And REM sleep is when we do a lot of emotional mental memory consolidation. So this is how REM sleep helps. And sometimes we talk is a way of consolidating it. But if it's constantly happening, that's when I'll say, talk to an expert.
Right. I'd like to ask a question. Some people happen to have chronic nightmares, and when they wake up, it really affects their psyche and their mood. Is there a problem? Does the problem lies with the quality of sleep that results in nightmares?
Okay, the nightmares is actually an aspect of the dreams. So research has found that dreaming is a way when we REM sleep to consolidate the unexpressed anger or emotions that have been pent up during the day. And imagine it's a buildup of our emotions, and most of the time it's unaware emotions, not conscious awareness, where we feel frustrated, angry, and so it's a buildup and we are not aware of it and we don't express it out. What happens when REM sleep, dreams is a way of processing it in metaphors to dissolve it, to consolidate, to park it in the right filing cabinet. So nightmares is when there are strong emotions that are not dealt with consciously for days. So when that happens, that's when nightmares occurs. So it's not that you have problem sleeping, which means emotionally or psychologically, there's some things you need to address consciously so that when you sleep, the dreams are more nice or interesting or bizarre, but never nightmares. Nightmares are an indication that the brain is trying to consolidate the emotions from consciousness.
I see.
It's a huge topic altogether. Wish I had more time to talk about it, yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. Felicia would like to ask, people who sleepwalk, what do you think is the best way to help them?
Sleepwalk.
Yes, sleepwalkers.
Okay. Sleepwalk is actually a condition, so I'll suggest straight away bring them to see a doctor because there's something neurological that needs to be worked on behaviorally, changing patterns of sleep. So it's more than just, so it helps get them to see a professional straight away.
Yeah, it seems very serious, right, for someone to sleepwalk. Yeah. earlier on you mentioned for people who sit in front of screens, television, computers for long hours of time, they tend to have this blue light that's
Yes.
coming in that will affect quality of sleep, right? I recently made a pair of glasses, and they asked me the option to have this special filter, this add-on um, option that allows the glasses to block out these blue light rays. Is that something that is scientifically proven, or is that a gimmick,
Yeah,
in
it's
your opinion?
scientifically proven, but again, in terms of what's the quality of the specs that's used to cut off blue light. So there are different qualities where there some are better than others.
Right,
But in the market, there's so many. Where if you can just look at the market, there'll be some evidence to show which are the better quality glass that actually cuts off. I know that some parents actually give the child to wear these special glasses, and actually helps a lot when it really
right.
cuts the blue light. Yes.
From what I can remember, those bring up the price quite significantly, like increased by $200 just for that option.
Yes.
So it is quite a
Yes, it
expensive
does, which
option.
means that the quality is better. Yes.
Uh, right,
And just a quick footnote, for some people, you notice that they'll say, oh, but I sleep better with television on. I think some of you may have this. Also, and in the past, we always say don't have a television in the room. But basically, research has found out that it's okay to have a television in the room. Many times when people fall asleep, they're not watching TV, they're just hearing the sounds of the television or music that's playing in the background. And actually, that helps for those who have an overly active mind. So they need the sound to distract them so they can fall asleep better. So finding your best sleep pattern or your chronotype helps you to enhance your sleep.
all right. Anyone with any more questions? You're welcome to unmute yourself and just ask directly. I'm sure Joaquin would like to hear your voice as well, if you have
Sleep is
anything to
a
ask.
very interesting topic, and really so important. Without sleep for more than
Yeah.
6 days, you will die. Our body will literally shut down.
All right. I guess no one has any more questions. No? Yeah. That being said, we hope that this webinar has been useful and all of you uh, wonderful people who experience better quality of sleep and hope to have some tips and tricks from this webinar that would help you sleep better. Other than that, yeah, thank you, Joaquin, for sharing with us and doing the
Thank you.
research on sleep and techniques to help improve it. Yes, this webinar is recorded down, so drop me an email at fred@promises.com.sg if you would like a copy of this presentation sent to you, and I'll find a way to upload it to you. Yes, my email is in the Zoom chat, and yeah, everyone, hope you sleep well. Thank you, Joaquin, and this webinar is brought to you by Promises Healthcare. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Sleep well.
All right. Sleep well.
Bye. Bye.
Bye bye.
All right, Grace. Yeah, we can end the session already.